Reality television claims to show everything: the conflict, the emotion, the unfiltered lives unfolding moment by moment. But behind those edited storylines lived truths far more complicated and far more carefully protected than anything the cameras ever revealed. Some stars carried secrets they believed would never surface. Others hid pasts so delicate that a single headline could dismantle the image they spent years constructing. And as audiences watched their on-screen personas grow, the unseen parts of their lives slowly tightened around them like a shadow they could no longer outrun. Tonight, we revisit 25 reality television personalities whose hidden histories eventually rose to the surface, reshaping their careers and rewriting the stories they hoped the world would remember. Before we begin, which reality star do you think hid the most shocking secret, and why? Share your thoughts in the comments. Stay with this countdown until the final reveal, because the truth surrounding number 1 remains one of the most unexpected twists in the genre's history. 25. Josh Duggar. Josh Duggar first appeared as the disciplined eldest son in a family-centered reality series built on themes of faith structure and moral guidance. His on-screen image reflected stability, reliability, and a quiet leadership that aligned perfectly with the values the show promoted. For many viewers, he represented a model of responsibility inside a household, admired for its apparent harmony and tradition. His public persona became a cornerstone of the franchise's brand. Behind that carefully crafted image, however, were long-standing issues concealed from the audience. Allegations from his past circulated privately for years, shielded by internal decisions and attempts to manage public perception. These buried events stood in sharp contrast to the virtues celebrated on television. As outside reporters uncovered documents and inconsistencies, the tension between his persona and reality grew impossible to ignore. The cracks widened as more details emerged, revealing patterns of secrecy that had gone unaddressed. The truth surfaced in a wave of revelations that dismantled both his personal standing and the credibility of the franchise built around him. Networks halted, production sponsors withdrew, and viewers questioned how much had been hidden in the name of preserving a televised ideal. Josh Duggar's downfall exposed the fragility of a narrative dependent on perfection, and how deeply a concealed truth can reshape a story once believed to be genuine. 24. Abby Lee Miller. Abby Lee Miller entered reality television as the commanding instructor whose strict standards shaped young dancers into national champions. Her on-screen persona combined authority, discipline, and a relentless pursuit of excellence that often overshadowed the softer moments of mentorship. Viewers were drawn to the intensity of her studio environment, where conflict and ambition blended into a compelling portrait of competitive artistry. Her influence became a defining force within the franchise. Beyond the cameras, Miller faced significant challenges that contradicted the confident figure she portrayed. Financial strain, unresolved tax issues, and disputes about her business practices created a private landscape far removed from the structured world of her studio. For years, these struggles remained hidden beneath the momentum of her growing television success. But investigators gradually uncovered discrepancies that pointed to deeper problems, revealing vulnerabilities not visible on screen. The turning point arrived when federal authorities brought charges that forced her public image into a harsh new light. Her imprisonment disrupted her role within the franchise and confronted viewers with the divide between her television persona and the realities she navigated behind closed doors. Miller's journey illustrates how quickly professional authority can erode when personal secrets surface, and how a reality show can mask instability until the consequences are impossible to contain. 23. Jen Shah. Jen Shah made a dramatic entrance into her franchise with an image defined by extravagant fashion. emotional intensity, and an aura of unshakable success. Portrayed as a powerful businesswoman with a lavish lifestyle, she quickly became one of the most recognizable figures in the series. Producers emphasized her flair for conflict and her ability to command attention, shaping a persona built on confidence and spectacle. To many viewers, she embodied the high-drama glamour of modern reality television. Away from the curated abundance, Shah carried a secret that would eventually overshadow everything she projected on screen. Allegations connecting her to a fraudulent marketing operation circulated quietly before gaining traction. For a time, she dismissed the scrutiny, insisting her enterprises were misunderstood. But investigators were already tracing financial pathways and compiling testimonies that contradicted her claims. The elegant persona that defined her public identity grew increasingly unstable. The unraveling reached its peak when federal agents arrested her while cameras were rolling, turning real life into the show's most unexpected twist. As evidence emerged, public perception shifted sharply, and networks moved to distance themselves. Shah's case became one of the most significant legal collapses in reality television history, revealing how a carefully constructed facade can disintegrate the moment hidden truths break into the open. 22. Todd Chrisley. Todd Chrisley entered reality television as the impeccably groomed patriarch of a high-profile Southern family. His on-screen identity blended confidence, charm, and a tightly controlled household where discipline and luxury appeared to coexist with ease. Producers framed him as a man who had mastered both business and domestic life, turning his rigid standards and sharp humor into signature elements of the show. For many viewers, he represented the polished ideal of a self-made success story. Away from the spotlight, however, Chrisley faced mounting financial challenges that contrasted sharply with his elevated on-screen lifestyle. Questions surrounding his business ventures, debts, and tax filings lingered for years, quietly circulating among industry observers. The curated image of wealth and authority increasingly depended on concealing the instability beneath it. Documents later revealed inconsistencies that contradicted the narrative he projected to audiences. The facade finally collapsed when federal prosecutors brought charges involving bank fraud and tax evasion. The case reshaped public perception, exposing a private reality far removed from the confidence he displayed on camera. His conviction reverberated through the franchise, forcing viewers to reconsider how much of his televised identity was performance rather than truth. Todd Chrisley's story stands as a reminder of how reality television can elevate an image even as concealed pressures threaten to bring it down. 21. Mama June Shannon. Mama June Shannon rose to prominence as the outspoken matriarch of a family whose chaotic humor and unconventional lifestyle captivated audiences. On television, she appeared brash, entertaining, and surprisingly resourceful, guiding her children through an unpredictable world with a mixture of stubbornness and affection. Her persona became central to the show's identity, offering viewers a combination of comedy and relatability wrapped in a distinctly Southern setting. Behind the scenes, Shannon struggled with long-standing personal challenges that the series only hinted at. Unstable relationships, financial difficulties, and conflicts within the family contributed to a private life marked by volatility. The pressures of rapid fame intensified these issues, creating moments of crisis that were carefully managed or omitted from televised narratives. As scrutiny grew, buried aspects of her personal life began to surface in ways that contradicted her comedic persona. The situation reached a breaking point when revelations about her connection to a problematic partner ignited public backlash and disrupted production. Networks distanced themselves, leaving the family to confront their difficulties without the protection of controlled storytelling. The fallout highlighted how swiftly a reality star's public identity can unravel when hidden struggles emerge. Mama June's journey remains a stark example of the gap between an entertainer's on-screen appeal and the instability that can shape life behind the curtain. 20. Farrah Abraham became one of the most recognized faces in a franchise built around the challenges of young motherhood. Her on-screen portrayal combined determination, emotional intensity, and moments of confrontation that made her both compelling and divisive. Producers emphasized her complex relationships and personal resilience, turning her into a central figure whose storyline shaped the tone of multiple seasons. To audiences, she appeared ambitious, yet overwhelmed navigating public scrutiny at a young age. Off-camera, Abraham faced pressures much deeper than those depicted in the series. Tension with family members, financial burden, and disputes about her representation created a private world marked by instability. As she pursued ventures outside the franchise, her choices grew increasingly at odds with the image the network sought to maintain. These conflicts fueled speculation about how much of her struggle was edited out to protect the show's narrative. The turning point arrived when public controversy surrounding her outside projects led to a breakdown in her relationship with the franchise. Contract disputes and behind-the-scenes disagreements culminated in her departure, transforming her image from a central cast member to a figure defined by conflict. The fallout revealed how reality television can magnify personal challenges while simultaneously concealing the forces that drive them. 19. Teresa Giudice. Teresa Giudice became one of the most prominent figures in her franchise, known for her bold personality, dynamic presence, and the luxury-driven lifestyle she showcased on screen. Her on-camera identity combined glamour with intensity, creating a persona that resonated strongly with viewers. She appeared fiercely loyal to family, passionate in conflict, and unwavering in her commitment to living life on her own terms. This blend of strength and spectacle made her a defining face of the series. Behind the scenes, however, Teresa faced growing financial strain that contradicted the image of stability portrayed on television. Business difficulties, rising debts, and questions surrounding undisclosed assets created a private reality that the show only hinted at. While producers focused on interpersonal drama, the deeper pressures shaping her decisions remained largely unexamined. The gap between her public persona and personal challenges widened steadily over time. The truth emerged when federal charges involving financial fraud brought her off-screen struggles into national focus. Her conviction and subsequent imprisonment marked one of the franchise's most dramatic turning points, reshaping both her personal life and the public's understanding of her televised identity. Teresa's story illustrates how reality television can amplify the surface of a personality while obscuring the forces that ultimately redefine it. Which moment in her journey changed your view of her the most? Share your thoughts in the comments. 18. Ryan Edwards. Ryan Edwards entered reality television as a quiet, understated presence navigating the responsibilities of young fatherhood. His on-screen portrayal emphasized his attempts to balance emotional distance with genuine concern for his child, creating a persona that appeared conflicted but sympathetic. Viewers saw a young man grappling with difficult circumstances under the pressure of a highly publicized family dynamic. His calm demeanor contrasted with the more dramatic figures around him, making him a familiar and steady part of the narrative. Away from the cameras, Edwards struggled with personal battles far more serious than the show initially revealed. Issues involving substance dependency, unstable relationships, and emotional volatility shaped a private world marked by repeated setbacks. Although fragments of these struggles appeared in certain episodes, much of the gravity was concealed to maintain the show's focus on broader storylines. As his behavior became increasingly erratic, legal complications and treatment attempts pushed his private challenges into public view. Viewers began questioning how long these issues had been present and why they had remained largely hidden. The shift in perception highlighted the tension formed between on-screen portrayal and real-life complexity. Edwards's story underscores how reality television can compress a person's life into manageable narratives while ignoring the deeper crises unfolding behind them. 17. Jon Gosselin. Jon Gosselin rose to fame as the overwhelmed yet good-natured father of a large family, living under the constant scrutiny of reality television. His on-screen identity centered on patience restraint and a desire to maintain stability amid the relentless demands of raising multiple children. Producers presented him as a relatable figure balancing exhaustion with dedication and offering viewers a sense of authenticity that grounded the series' more dramatic moments. Privately, however, Jon faced mounting pressures the show only partially acknowledged. Fame introduced new stress into an already strained marriage, and disagreements over finances, privacy, and the children's exposure added further tension. As filming continued, Jon found himself increasingly disconnected from the role he portrayed, struggling to reconcile the public version of his life with the chaos he experienced behind closed doors. The tipping point came when his marriage collapsed in a highly publicized split that transformed him from a sympathetic figure into a tabloid fixture. Legal battles, accusations, and custody disputes reshaped his public standing and exposed the complex dynamics previously hidden beneath the show's family-oriented facade. Jon's trajectory illustrates how quickly ordinary life can fracture when transformed into entertainment. 16. Colton Underwood. Colton Underwood entered reality television as the composed former athlete whose televised journey centered on vulnerability, emotional honesty, and the search for authentic connection. His on-screen persona projected sincerity and restraint qualities that distinguished him from peers in a franchise known for heightened drama. Audiences responded to his quiet intensity, while producers emphasized his willingness to articulate doubt and fear, shaping him into a modern romantic lead. Off-camera, however, Underwood grappled with personal conflicts that the series never fully acknowledged. His struggle with identity, amplified by public expectation, and the pressure to maintain a consistent narrative, created an internal tension that grew more pronounced after filming concluded. Meanwhile, private disputes involving a former partner surfaced through legal documents and public statements, revealing behavior that contrasted sharply with his composed television image. These disclosures complicated the narrative that had defined his season. The turning point arrived when Underwood publicly addressed his identity, acknowledging the emotional weight of years spent hiding essential parts of himself. His revelation prompted widespread discussion about authenticity, privacy, and the pressures exerted by reality television. While many viewers expressed empathy, others questioned how deeply the series had shaped his choices. Underwood's story remains one of the clearest examples of how unseen struggles can shape and ultimately disrupt a carefully crafted public persona. 15. Larissa dos Santos Lima. Larissa dos Santos Lima became a central figure in her franchise through her intense emotional reactions, sharp humor, and confrontational style. Her on-screen persona showcased volatility and vulnerability in equal measure, creating moments that drove major storylines and attracted strong viewer engagement. Producers leaned into her unpredictable energy, positioning her as one of the franchise's most memorable and polarizing personalities. Privately, however, Larissa contended with challenges that extended far beyond televised conflict. Legal disputes, financial uncertainty, and difficulties stemming from her immigration status shaped a personal life marked by instability. These pressures influenced her behavior on and off camera, yet the series rarely explored the underlying circumstances. As her notoriety increased, so did the demands placed upon her, creating a cycle of stress that the show's edited episodes only partially conveyed. The situation escalated when multiple domestic incidents resulted in legal action, drawing significant public attention and prompting broader scrutiny of her off-screen life. Later, her decision to undergo extensive cosmetic procedures added further complexity to her public image and strained her relationship with the network. Ultimately, the disconnect between Larissa's real-life struggles and her televised persona contributed to her departure. Her experience highlights the emotional cost of fame for individuals whose private challenges are overshadowed by curated conflict. 14. Gabi Victor. Gabi Victor emerged on Bad Girls Club as a forceful presence whose confidence and confrontational style quickly distinguished her within the cast. Her on-screen persona revolved around assertiveness, loyalty to her twin sister, and a willingness to challenge any housemate who provoked her. Producers capitalized on her intensity, using her reactions to heighten the show's trademark chaos and create enduring viral moments. Behind the scenes, however, Gabi navigated pressures that the series rarely addressed. Sudden exposure to fame intensified existing insecurities, while financial strain and shifting personal relationships compounded her emotional stress. Although her television persona appeared bold and unshakable, she later explained that much of her behavior stemmed from confusion and vulnerability rather than confidence. The environment of constant conflict heightened those pressures, shaping moments that viewers perceived as purely dramatic. In the years following her appearance, Gabi began speaking openly about production tactics that encouraged volatile interactions and reinforced exaggerated versions of cast members' personalities. Her reflections reframed how audiences interpreted her earlier behavior, revealing the psychological impact of a system built on provocation. Gabi's experience underscores the distance between the spectacle of reality television and the emotional consequences borne by those who participate in it. 13. Snooki Nicole Polizzi. Snooki became one of the most recognizable faces in reality television through her unrestrained humor, chaotic energy, and distinctive identity that shaped the cultural impact of her series. On screen, she embodied the persona of the carefree partygoer whose exaggerated reactions and unpredictable decisions added momentum to nearly every episode. Her presence offered a blend of comedy and volatility that made her central to the show's narrative and broader cultural footprint. Off-camera, however, she faced emotional pressures that seldom appeared in edited storylines. The rapid transition from anonymity to global fame brought scrutiny that magnified her insecurities. Personal challenges related to self-image, public criticism, and early professional expectations created a private landscape far more complicated than her playful persona suggested. Friends later described periods of loneliness and disorientation as she navigated the contrast between her public identity and her internal struggles. The shift in her life became pronounced when Snooki began addressing her mental health and distancing herself from the image that had defined her early fame. As she embraced motherhood and reevaluated her priorities, audiences gained a clearer view of the strain hidden beneath the surface. Her evolution revealed how a persona built for entertainment can obscure deeper vulnerabilities, and how stepping away from that persona can fundamentally reshape public perception. 12. Andrew Glennon. Andrew Glennon entered reality television as a calm, measured presence who contrasted sharply with the emotional turbulence surrounding him. His on-screen portrayal emphasized steadiness and rationalities, presenting him as a grounding figure during moments of heightened conflict. Producers positioned him as the partner attempting to navigate complex family dynamics with patience, allowing viewers to interpret him as a stabilizing force in a challenging environment. Privately, Glennon carried a history of personal difficulties that the show never fully confronted. Past legal issues, strained relationships, and emotional instability formed a backdrop that contradicted the composed persona he displayed on screen. These details surfaced gradually through external reporting rather than through the series itself, raising questions about how much of his reality was intentionally obscured. The limited portrayal created a public image that did not reflect the full complexity of his circumstances. The turning point arrived when a highly public domestic incident shifted the narrative surrounding him. Legal filings and competing accounts brought long-hidden tensions to the forefront, complicating the assumptions viewers had previously formed. As coverage intensified, Glennon's role within the franchise changed, revealing the disparity between his edited persona and the challenges unfolding behind the scenes. His story demonstrates how selective storytelling can mask deeper instability until crisis makes it impossible to ignore. 11. Kris Jenner. Kris Jenner became synonymous with modern reality television through her portrayal as a strategic, composed matriarch, guiding her family's ascent to global prominence. Her on-screen persona blended managerial precision with emotional intuition, positioning her as the architect behind a multi-layered media empire. Viewers saw a figure who balanced familial loyalty with business ambition, shaping narratives that contributed directly to her family's extraordinary visibility. Behind the polished image, however, existed long-standing controversies surrounding her decision-making and her management of family narratives. Industry observers and former associates have suggested that she exercised firm control over what was presented publicly, often prioritizing strategic advantage over transparency. Reports of internal disputes and complex personal relationships painted a portrait of someone navigating far more tension than the show portrayed. These allegations complicated the narrative of harmonious leadership emphasized in the franchise. Public scrutiny intensified as audiences revisited early seasons and questioned moments that once seemed benign. Kris later addressed some concerns, but the discussion revealed persistent doubts about the boundary between protective guidance and calculated influence. Her story reflects how reality television can elevate a public figure while simultaneously obscuring the mechanisms behind their authority mechanisms that remain partly hidden even after years in the spotlight. 10. Scott Disick. Scott Disick became a central figure in his franchise through a blend of sharp humor, effortless charisma, and a knack for transforming even ordinary interactions into memorable moments. His on-screen persona balanced comedic irreverence with flashes of vulnerability, creating a character who remained compelling even when he occupied the margins of the main storyline. Producers frequently framed him as the unpredictable presence whose reactions added texture to the family dynamic. Away from the cameras, however, Disick struggled with long-standing emotional challenges rooted in loss dependency and instability. Public fame magnified these issues, and the pressure to maintain a polished exterior grew increasingly difficult. Episodes hinted at his turmoil, but much of the deeper context, including the weight of unresolved grief and patterns of self-destructive behavior, remained largely off-screen. Those close to him later described an internal conflict that rarely aligned with the humorous persona he displayed. The disparity between image and reality became impossible to hide as personal crises unfolded in the public eye. Stints in treatment facilities strained relationships, and moments of volatility revealed the hidden cost of performing stability while navigating private chaos. Disick's trajectory underscores how reality television can capture the surface of a personality while leaving the most significant struggles obscured until they erupt beyond the bounds of controlled storytelling. 9. Tila Tequila. Tila Tequila rose to prominence as one of the earliest social media celebrities to transition into reality television presenting herself as bold, provocative, and unafraid to embrace spectacle. Her on-screen persona leaned into shock value, making her a standout figure during an era when the genre relied heavily on controversy to drive viewership. Producers shaped her narrative around freedom rebellion and emotional unpredictability, creating a figure who seemed to thrive on attention. Privately, however, she contended with profound emotional and psychological struggles that influenced her behavior far more than audiences realized. Early trauma, identity instability, and the pressures of rapid fame formed a turbulent foundation beneath her public image. As scrutiny intensified, her actions became increasingly erratic, blurring the line between performance and genuine crisis. The show offered glimpses of volatility, but the underlying causes remained unaddressed. Her public decline accelerated when she adopted extreme beliefs and engaged in conduct that alienated supporters and industry connections. Opportunities dissolved, and the persona that once propelled her career became inseparable from the controversies that ended it. Tila's experience reveals how rapidly fame can amplify existing vulnerabilities and how devastating the consequences can be when private struggles slip beyond the reach of controlled narratives. Do you think her downfall came from fame, personal struggle, or something the audience never saw? Share your view in the comments. 8. Brody Jenner. Brody Jenner emerged in reality television as the composed, effortlessly charismatic figure whose lineage and social connections granted him immediate visibility. His on-screen role emphasized charm, confidence, and a sense of ease within elite cultural circles. Producers often positioned him as the calm counterpart to more turbulent personalities, offering viewers a figure who appeared grounded amid the swirl of conflict and aspiration that defined the series. Behind that image, however, Jenner wrestled with complicated family dynamics and long-standing emotional tensions. Growing up within a blended household, shaped by fame, distance, and shifting alliances, left unresolved questions of identity and belonging. While the show hinted at strained relationships, the deeper contours of those experiences remained largely absent from televised narratives. His seemingly effortless confidence masked insecurities developing over years of comparison and public expectation. As time passed, interviews and external reporting illuminated the pressures he carried behind the scenes, relationship difficulties, changing career paths, and reflections on family history prompted audiences to reevaluate the persona they once perceived as uncomplicated. Jenner's story highlights how reality television can flatten complex lives into digestible archetypes, obscuring the emotional undercurrents that shape a person long after the cameras turn away. 7. Tyra Banks. Tyra Banks entered reality television as the authoritative host and creator of a competitive modeling series that reshaped public perceptions of beauty and ambition. On screen, she projected confidence, discipline, and mentorship, guiding aspiring models through demanding challenges with a mixture of encouragement and sharp critique. Her persona represented both industry expertise and emotional insight, allowing viewers to see her as a figure who could balance compassion with uncompromising standards. Beyond the polished presentation, however, Banks faced ongoing scrutiny concerning the ethics and methods employed throughout the show's long run. Former contestants later described manipulative scenarios, emotionally taxing environments, and styling decisions that undermined their confidence. While the episodes portrayed these moments as part of a transformative artistic process, behind-the-scenes accounts suggested a dynamic shaped more by production needs than by genuine mentorship. These criticisms complicated the narrative of empowerment the show consistently promoted. Public reevaluation intensified when archival clips resurfaced, prompting discussions about the psychological impact of certain challenges and comments. Banks eventually addressed some concerns, yet the debate left lasting questions about how much of the production reinforced harmful standards. Her story underscores the tension between inspirational branding and the hidden pressures embedded within reality competition formats, pressures that often remain invisible until former participants choose to speak openly. 6. Spencer Pratt. Spencer Pratt became one of the most notorious figures in reality television by embracing the role of antagonist with unusual awareness and intensity. His on-screen persona revolved around strategy, confrontation, and a willingness to become the focal point of conflict. Producers emphasized his polarizing presence, turning him into an essential engine of drama and elevating him to one of the genre's earliest and most recognizable villains. Viewers responded with equal measures of fascination and frustration. Off-camera, Pratt faced personal pressures magnified by the persona he constructed. Fame arrived quickly, and maintaining relevance became both an opportunity and a burden. Financial missteps strained family relationships, and emotional volatility shaped a private world far more fragile than the confident front he displayed. Interviews later revealed that he leaned heavily into his villain identity because it guaranteed screen time, even as the role increasingly isolated him from colleagues and audiences. The facade collapsed when he and his partner stepped away from the franchise, leaving them to confront the consequences of the image he had carefully curated. The shift exposed the emotional toll of sustaining a character built for conflict. Pratt's trajectory illustrates how reality television can reward exaggerated behavior even as it sets the stage for personal fallout once the cameras are gone. 5. Heidi Montag. Heidi Montag began her reality television career as the optimistic, approachable counterpart to more assertive personalities. Her on-screen identity centered on friendship, aspiration, and a desire to create stability in the midst of escalating interpersonal tension. Early seasons positioned her as a relatable figure navigating young adulthood, with sincerity making her a favorite among viewers who connected with her vulnerability and ambition. Privately, however, Montag struggled with insecurity, external pressure, and the weight of public commentary that intensified as her visibility grew. Her relationship decisions, career ambitions, and personal doubts created a foundation of emotional instability that the show only partially explored. These internal conflicts eventually contributed to her choice to undergo extensive cosmetic procedures, a transformation that revealed deeper turmoil and sparked widespread debate about the psychological cost of fame. The consequences of these decisions became evident as her public image shifted dramatically. Critics questioned the role of production influence, media pressure, and personal relationships in shaping her choices. Montag later described feeling exploited and overwhelmed at a time when she lacked meaningful support. Her experience highlights the vulnerability of individuals thrust into an industry that often prioritizes spectacle over well-being. 4. Honey Boo Boo Family. The Honey Boo Boo family entered reality television as a boisterous, unfiltered household whose humor and eccentric routines quickly became the centerpiece of their series. On screen, they appeared carefree, endearing, and united through a shared willingness to embrace the unconventional. Their dynamic offered viewers a mix of comedy and sincerity, shaping a persona built on authenticity and resilience rather than refinement. This unpolished charm became their defining feature. Away from the cameras, however, the family faced long-standing personal challenges that the show only selectively addressed. Financial strain complicated relationships, and concerns regarding health and emotional stability created a foundation of instability beneath the entertaining facade. The rapid shift from everyday anonymity to national fame intensified these issues, placing heightened pressure on a household already navigating difficult circumstances. Certain aspects of their private life were intentionally minimized or redirected to preserve the show's comedic tone. The turning point came when reports emerged regarding troubling associations within the family. Public reaction was immediate and severe, prompting networks to halt production and distance themselves from the controversy. As the spotlight shifted from humor to crisis, the gap between the televised portrayal and the underlying reality became unmistakable. The Honey Boo Boo family's downfall highlights how swiftly a reality brand can collapse when concealed fractures come to light. 3. Christine Brown. Christine Brown appeared on her long-running series as the nurturing, steady presence within a complex family structure that relied heavily on cooperation and shared responsibility. Her on-screen identity emphasized warmth, patience, and a commitment to maintaining harmony amid interpersonal strain. Viewers interpreted her as a grounding influence, someone who provided emotional balance as the family confronted shifting expectations and evolving relationships. Privately, however, Christine experienced growing dissatisfaction and emotional fatigue that the show only subtly acknowledged. Feelings of neglect, inequity, and unaddressed conflict accumulated over years, deepening the divide between her public persona and her internal reality. As dynamics within the household changed, she found herself increasingly isolated, questioning her role and the sacrifices she had made. The series often presented fragments of these tensions, but avoided the deeper implications underlying them. The turning point arrived when Christine made the decision to leave the marriage, a revelation that reshaped both the family and the franchise. Her departure invited viewers to reassess earlier seasons and consider how much of her struggle had remained unspoken. The shift in her storyline exposed the emotional toll of sustaining a life presented as unified but fractured beneath the surface. Her experience underscores the limits of reality television's portrayal of family harmony. 2. Kendra Wilkinson. Kendra Wilkinson entered reality television as the energetic, light-hearted figure whose humor and openness distinguished her from the more controlled personalities around her. Her on-screen persona conveyed youthfulness, spontaneity, and an ability to navigate fame with apparent ease. She became a standout presence in a household marked by glamour and attention, offering a relatable contrast to an environment steeped in celebrity culture. Behind the scenes, however, Wilkinson confronted personal challenges shaped by a difficult upbringing, complex relationships, and the pressures of public visibility. Early fame magnified long-standing insecurities and placed her under scrutiny that often contradicted the carefree persona she displayed on screen. Attempts to redefine herself beyond the roles imposed by the industry introduced further emotional strain, especially as she sought stability in her personal life. Her private struggles became public when her marriage unraveled across multiple platforms, revealing tensions that had developed over years. Interviews, documents, and candid reflections exposed vulnerabilities previously masked by her on-camera optimism. These revelations prompted audiences to reconsider her earlier portrayal, recognizing the hidden pressures behind her cheerful demeanor. Wilkinson's journey illustrates how the pursuit of reinvention can collide with the weight of past experiences when lived in the public eye. 1. Viall. Nick Viall entered reality television as the articulate, introspective, romantic lead whose journey across multiple seasons portrayed him as a figure deeply invested in emotional clarity. His on-screen persona emphasized sincerity, thoughtful communication, and a willingness to confront difficult conversations. Producers highlighted his reflective nature, crafting a narrative in which he appeared unusually aware of the complexities of televised relationships. This image positioned him as one of the franchise's most recognizable and enduring personalities. Beyond the carefully shaped portrayal, however, Viall faced persistent questions regarding the strategic decisions behind his recurring appearances. Former cast members and industry observers suggested he possessed a calculated understanding of how narrative control, public sympathy, and continued visibility could be managed to his advantage. While these interpretations remained speculative, they introduced a layer of complexity that contrasted with the earnest vulnerability presented on screen. The boundary between authenticity and performance grew increasingly ambiguous. The divide widened as post-show interviews and behind-the-scenes accounts described Viall as an individual adept at navigating production dynamics, sometimes leveraging emotional moments to strengthen his public standing. His later transition into broader media work reinforced perceptions that fame had become an intentional extension of his television persona. Viall's journey illustrates how reality television can blur the distinction between personal truth and strategic self-presentation, leaving audiences uncertain about where the character ends and the individual begins. Reality television often claims to reveal the truth, yet these stories show how much can remain hidden, even under constant exposure. The personas audiences follow from week to week are only fragments of far more complicated lives, shaped by private pressures, concealed histories, and decisions that never make it into an episode. When those hidden truths finally surface, they reshape not only careers, but the narratives viewers believed they understood. As this countdown ends, the contrast becomes unmistakable. What appears authentic on screen can be carefully curated, and what remains unseen often holds the deepest impact. The line separating performance from reality is thinner than most imagine, and the consequences of crossing it can last far beyond the closing credits. Which reveal in this list challenged your assumptions the most, and why share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective helps shape the next investigation.